Welcome back to Harry Potter Daily, home of Harry Potter. Today's topic is a big one, a dangerous one, possibly friendship ending.
I've already unfollowed you emotionally. I already know where you stand when it comes to Snape.
Whatever you say, we're asking the question no one at Hogwarts ever asked out loud because they were too busy being manipulated. Snape versus Dumbledore. Who was really pulling the strings?
And I am here to tell you, with love in my heart and venom in my voice, that Severus Snape was not some poor manipulated goth victim. He was a grown man with a flair for drama, a wardrobe sponsored by Hot Topic, and a resume that screams, I know exactly what I'm doing.
And I'm here to argue that Albus Dumbledore, twinkly-eyed, lemon-drop-offering, grandfatherly chess master, played Severus Snape like a Stradivarian violin and then politely applauded himself afterward. Before anyone starts yelling Death Eater or twinkly-eyed chess master, we need to slow this down and define what we actually mean by manipulation. Because manipulation isn't just lying. That's the kindergarten version. Manipulation is far more sophisticated than falsehoods or deception. It's the careful structuring of someone's environment, information, and emotional incentives so that the choice they make feels voluntary, while the outcome has already been engineered. Manipulation is about architecture. You don't shove someone off a cliff. You build a road, put up signs, remove all exits, and let them walk themselves to the edge, believing they chose the view.
Oh good, we're starting with definitions. This is already sounding very Dumbledore of you. I half expect you to pause and say, words are important, Harry.
Exactly. And Dumbledore understands words, silence, timing, and omission better than anyone in the series. He doesn't bark orders, he doesn't threaten, he curates reality. He withholds information until the moment it becomes emotionally unavoidable. He drip feeds truth in such a way that by the time someone realizes the full picture, they're already committed. That's manipulation.
Counterpoint. Snape literally lies for a living. His entire existence is built on deception. He manipulates Voldemort, the Death Eaters, the Order, Hogwarts staff, and students. If manipulation were a Hogwarts subject, Snape would teach it, assign unfair homework, and deduct points from Gryffindor for asking clarifying questions.
You're conflating tactical deception with strategic manipulation. Snape lies because his role requires it. His lies are transactional and dangerous, yes, but they're reactive. Dumbledore's manipulation is proactive. He doesn't just deceive people, he designs the moral landscape they inhabit. Take Harry. Dumbledore doesn't lie outright to him most of the time. He simply doesn't tell him things. He lets Harry form conclusions based on partial data, knowing full well what those conclusions will be.
So your argument is that lying is less manipulative than lying by omission with better vibes?
My argument is that manipulation is about power asymmetry. Dumbledore always knows more. He controls access to truth. He decides who is ready to know what, which conveniently aligns with when that knowledge becomes useful to his plan. Snape operates under constant threat of death. His manipulation is survival-based. Dumbledore's is ideological.
Ah, yes, the dangerous ideology of stopping Wizard Hitler. Truly sinister.
Ends don't negate methods. That's the entire moral question. Dumbledore believes the end justifies the means, and because he believes that, he becomes the ultimate authority on who must suffer quietly for the greater good. And no one suffers more quietly or more conveniently than Severus Snape. Let's go back to the beginning. Lily Evans, the gravitational center of Snape's life. His guilt, his grief, his obsession, his moral fracture, all of it orbits her. When Dumbledore confronts Snape after Lily's death, he doesn't see a redeemed man, he sees a broken one, and broken people are malleable.
Or, and stay with me here, Snape sees himself as broken and decides to weaponize that guilt forever. You're talking like Dumbledore hypnotized him with a pocket watch.
Dumbledore doesn't need hypnosis. He understands something far more effective: shame. He understands that guilt, when properly cultivated, becomes a renewable resource. Snape comes to him desperate. He begs him to save Lily. When that fails, Dumbledore pivots instantly. He reframes Snape's grief not as something to heal from, but something to atone for. And atonement, in Dumbledore's hands, becomes lifelong servitude.
Servitude? He asks him to protect a child whose life he helped endanger.
No, he asks him to protect the living embodiment of his worst failure every day for 17 years in silence, while being despised by that child, while never being allowed to explain himself, while being reminded constantly of the man Lily chose instead. That's not redemption, that's punishment disguised as purpose.
You're acting like Snape didn't jump at the chance. He doesn't say, "I need therapy." He says, "I will do anything." That's not Dumbledore twisting his arm. That's Snape volunteering to crawl on broken glass forever.
Because Dumbledore never offers him another option. There is no conversation about healing or forgiveness or release. There is only utility. Protect the boy, not because it will save Snape, not because it will honor Lily in a healthy way, but because it serves the war effort. Dumbledore takes the most vulnerable moment of Snape's life and locks him into it permanently.
Ah, yes, the poor, helpless Severus Snape, dragged kicking and screaming into continuing to be obsessed with Lily Potter for the next 17 years. Let's be honest, Snape doesn't want to move on. He doesn't want absolution. He wants to suffer, because suffering keeps Lily alive in his head. Dumbledore didn't invent that pathology, he just gave it a job title.
And that's exactly why it's manipulative. Dumbledore recognizes that Snape's grief is self-sustaining and decides not to disrupt it. He institutionalizes it. He turns it into a role, a mission, a moral obligation. Snape is never encouraged to become better, only to become useful.
Useful in defeating Voldemort. Again, minor detail.
At what cost? Snape's entire identity becomes defined by penance. He is never allowed to evolve beyond the worst thing he ever did. Dumbledore freezes him in that moment of failure and builds a strategy around it. And crucially, this is important, Dumbledore never tells Snape the full truth about Harry. Not at first, not for years. He lets Snape believe he's protecting Lily's son, when in reality, he's grooming a sacrificial lamb.
Now we're getting somewhere, because if anyone's being manipulated harder than Snape, it's Harry.
Exactly, but Snape is the prototype. Lily is the lever. Dumbledore learns early that love, especially unresolved love, is the most powerful control mechanism in the wizarding world. He uses it again and again.
So your thesis is that Dumbledore isn't evil, he's efficient. He doesn't coerce with threats, he recruits with emotional debts.
Yes, and the tragedy of Snape is that he mistakes that debt for redemption. He believes suffering equals moral worth. Dumbledore never corrects him, because as long as Snape believes that, he will never stop obeying.
Or maybe Snape doesn't want to stop. Maybe this is the only version of himself he can live with, the martyr, the villain who saves the world anyway.
And Dumbledore is perfectly content to let him die that way.
Well, when you put it like that, it almost sounds like manipulation.
It is, just the kind that smiles kindly while it does it. The moment that seals it for me, the moment where the mask slips completely, is Dumbledore's death. Not the act itself, the planning, the choreography, the emotional calculus behind it. Dumbledore doesn't ask Snape if he can kill him. He doesn't say, "Would you be willing?" or "Is this something you can bear?" He says, "You must." That language matters.
Snape agrees in about 3 seconds.
Because Dumbledore frames it as the only moral option. He doesn't present alternatives, he doesn't explore different outcomes, he constructs a scenario where refusal would mean catastrophic consequences for Draco, for the Elder Wand, for the war effort, for Snape's already fragile sense of moral worth. He engineers inevitability.
Or, and stay with me here, Snape sees the ultimate career opportunity. Kill the most powerful wizard alive, gain Voldemort's absolute trust, secure job stability and a collapsing evil regime, and traumatize a school full of children. That's not manipulation, that's ambition with bangs.
You're joking, but this is exactly how Dumbledore sells it. He doesn't say this will destroy you. He says this will protect Draco. He says this will preserve your cover. He says this will spare me suffering. He wraps the act in mercy and necessity until Snape can no longer see it as murder, only duty.
Snape loves duty. Duty is his emotional support animal.
And Dumbledore knows that. He knows Snape's psychology intimately. He knows Snape needs to believe that suffering equals righteousness, so he offers him the most painful task imaginable and labels it noble. That's not a request, that's a psychological trap.
I just want to point out that Snape does not hesitate. He doesn't say, give me a day. He doesn't say, let me think. He doesn't say, I have concerns. He says, fine, like someone agreeing to cover a shift.
Because Dumbledore has already done the work. This conversation doesn't begin on the astronomy tower. It begins years earlier, when Dumbledore teaches Snape that his worth lies entirely in what he is willing to endure. By the time Dumbledore says, "You must kill me," Snape has already been conditioned to believe that refusal would make him a moral failure.
So what you're saying is, Dumbledore didn't force Snape to kill him, he just emotionally reverse-engineered Snape so thoroughly that murder felt like the polite response.
Exactly. And notice something crucial. Dumbledore never asks Snape how he will live with it afterward. He never checks in on the psychological aftermath. He never plans for Snape's survival beyond usefulness. Once the task is assigned, Snape's inner life ceases to matter.
To be fair, Dumbledore doesn't check in on anyone's mental health. Hogwarts is basically a liability lawsuit with staircases.
Harry Potter is the clearest evidence that Dumbledore manipulates everyone, including Snape. From the moment Harry arrives at Hogwarts, Dumbledore knows the truth. Harry is marked for death, not metaphorically, literally. The prophecy doesn't offer a loophole, it offers a timeline, and Dumbledore chooses not to tell him.
Ah yes, the classic mentorship strategy. Let the child grow emotionally attached to everyone before revealing he's a Horcrux Happy Meal.
Dumbledore raises Harry like a lamb for slaughter and tells Snape just enough to keep him compliant. He lets Snape believe Harry is being protected for Lily's sake, while knowing full well that Harry must eventually die. That omission is not accidental, it's functional.
Snape spends 6 books emotionally abusing that lamb.
Because Dumbledore needs Snape to hate Harry convincingly.
Oh please, Snape hated Harry because Harry looked like James Potter and breathed too loudly. No one needed to manipulate that. That hatred came factory installed.
But Dumbledore allows it. He never intervenes, he never moderates Snape's behavior, he never says enough, because Snape's cruelty serves a purpose. It keeps Voldemort convinced, it keeps Snape embedded, it keeps the lie intact. Harry's suffering becomes collateral damage in maintaining Snape's cover.
So Harry is a pawn, Snape is a pawn, and Dumbledore is what, playing wizard chess against himself?
Dumbledore believes he's playing against Voldemort, but the cost is paid by children and broken men. And when Snape finally learns the truth, that Harry must die, his reaction is telling. He doesn't argue strategy, he doesn't question the prophecy, he explodes morally. You have been raising him like a pig for slaughter. That's not the reaction of a co-conspirator. That's the reaction of someone realizing too late that they've been manipulated.
Or the reaction of someone who suddenly realizes the emotional return on investment is negative.
Snape's entire justification, Lily's son must live, collapses in that moment. Dumbledore has allowed Snape to operate under a false premise for years. That's not partnership, that's control.
To be fair, Dumbledore does eventually tell Snape the truth.
When it's too late for Snape to do anything but comply. That's the pattern. Truth is revealed only when resistance is impossible.
Dumbledore is basically a narrative escape room designer. You'll understand when you reach the end.
Now, let's talk about occlumency, because this is where manipulation becomes surgical. Dumbledore assigns Snape to teach Harry occlumency, knowing full well it will fail.
Because Snape teaches like a bat with a grudge.
Exactly. And Dumbledore knows that. He knows the personal history, he knows the resentment, he knows the lack of trust. So why assign Snape at all? Because Dumbledore doesn't want occlumency to succeed.
You're saying Dumbledore intentionally hired the worst possible tutor for the most important mental defense lesson in the war. That's not manipulation, that's academic malpractice.
Dumbledore needs Harry emotionally exposed. He needs the connection between Harry and Voldemort to remain active long enough for the prophecy to unfold. If Harry successfully blocks Voldemort, the timeline changes, the visions stop, the bait disappears. So Dumbledore sets Harry up to fail without ever explicitly saying so.
So Harry gets nightly brain invasions because Dumbledore wanted to keep the plot spicy.
And Snape becomes the instrument of that failure. He is placed in an impossible position: teach effectively and risk undermining the plan, or teach poorly and traumatize a child. Either way, Snape absorbs the blame.
Snape absorbing blame is his brand.
And Dumbledore counts on that. When Snape's occlumency fails, Dumbledore doesn't take responsibility. He doesn't say, "This was my decision." He allows Harry to blame Snape. He allows Snape to internalize that blame.
So Dumbledore stays morally clean while everyone else looks like a mess.
That's the essence of manipulation, not control through force, but control through narrative. Dumbledore decides who knows what, when they know it, and how they interpret their own suffering. Snape dies believing he was a monster who did one good thing. Harry lives believing Dumbledore was a benevolent guide. The truth is messier.
So what you're saying is Dumbledore didn't just defeat Voldemort, he outsourced the emotional damage to everyone around him.
Yes, and Severus Snape was his most effective tool because Snape never asked for happiness. He only asked to be useful.
So Dumbledore said, "Perfect, I can work with that."
That's not mentorship, that's manipulation.
Well, on the bright side, at least Hogwarts finally got a decent headmaster afterward.
Low bar.
Let me flip this. Snape chooses cruelty, he chooses silence, and he chooses to be incomprehensible until after he's dead, like a wizarding version of a vague tweet. He manipulates Dumbledore by presenting himself as broken, loyal, and dependent, while quietly doing whatever he wants.
Such as what?
Such as rewriting his own legacy. He controls the narrative by revealing the truth only when no one can question him. That's not tragic, that's PR.
The Pensieve memories are raw, painful, honest.
They are curated. Snape doesn't show himself joining the Death Eaters out of ideology. He shows heartbreak in bullying. That's manipulation with background music.
Dumbledore dies revered. His secrets are forgiven. His plan succeeds. Snape dies hated. That imbalance tells you who held power.
Or it tells you who failed at customer service.
Dumbledore manipulated Snape by exploiting guilt, love, and absolutism. Snape was brave, but trapped in a role he didn't fully choose.
Snape manipulated everyone by leaning into martyrdom, withholding empathy, and ensuring his redemption arc couldn't be peer-reviewed.
Maybe the truth is that manipulation flowed both ways.
Like a toxic situationship with wands.
And maybe that's the point. Power corrupts, even when it wears half-moon glasses.
And trauma doesn't excuse being a nightmare professor.